Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for cash tags. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Landon Swan, co-founder of Lightfolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thank you. Appreciate having me on.
All right, Airbnb. Maybe the bar is low now. This looks like almost like a lot of other stock charts here lately, because this thing's fallen pretty precipitously over the last quarter or so going into these results. Do you have data that kind of sets up the fact that this stock's down 6% just this month alone?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think you have to look at is just travel in general. And, we've noticed a trend, and we've quantified a trend over the last 1 to 2 years that people are prioritizing experiences and travel over, just commercial goods. And we've seen that helping a lot of travel companies, Airbnb included. But what's kind of interesting is a little bit of a shift over the last year where we see, and this chart shows it really well, we see that lower income, in the 2023 line, that under 50,000 income, they used to make up 31% of the spending, and now in 24 they're making up 19%. Whereas that higher income, that green area, over 100,000, they were making up 35% of the spending, and now it's 44%. Well, you can guess what happens when the higher income people start taking up a larger portion of travel expenses and travel budgets. Prices go up. And so this is obviously going to be good for, every travel company out there, be it, hotels, car rentals, airlines, Airbnb. So this is a tailwind pushing in the right direction. So that's definitely a good thing. We also see that Airbnb's done really well with, just the website. 90% of their traffic is unpaid organic search. And so they have a very strong web presence. When you're looking for a place to stay, that's coming up a lot. And you can see that, their web traffic is dominant among some of these really big names. Before I looked it up, if you would have told me they were bigger than Expedia, I probably would have bet money on that and lost. I didn't know that they were bigger. This is really interesting to see how strong they are, and also how well they all kind of move together, right? I mean, you don't see a big gap where one is pulling away from the other. They're all kind of moving in unison, but Airbnb is the dominant web traffic here. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting is, and they quoted this back in March, is that I guess the claim is that a one-bedroom on Airbnb average cost is $114, down a couple of points year over year, whereas the average hotel is $149, up 7 points year over year. I don't know. I'd love to know how much of their volume comes from one-night stays. To me personally, this is just anecdotal, and you guys can chime in, but I don't think of Airbnb if I'm going to stay somewhere for one night. For me, it's you're staying 4 or 5 days plus, maybe a week, and then you consider Airbnb. If it's one night, you're going to a hotel. It's just too easy. But we are definitely seeing that people that they had a lot of complaints when it came to all the fees and the extra costs and even sometimes responsibilities, and make sure you take out the trash and load the dishwasher and get the laundry set up, like all that stuff. That pulled down the happiness of Airbnb, but they've responded in putting in, they put all of the fees in the complete listing so you can see exactly what you're going to pay. So you can't just, charge $100 a night with a $300 cleaning fee and sneak it past people. You can't do that anymore. So they're responding a little bit. I think that they've got to do two things. One is out of their control, and that's going to have to be the travel industry's got to stay strong. That's got to continue to be a very strong movement for them, a tailwind. And then they've also got to continue to set themselves apart from the regular hotel experience. I mean, you got VRBO that's going to compete with them, but generally speaking, it's do you go to an established hotel/resort, or do you get an Airbnb? And they've got to continue to make that case because I think there's very clear pros and cons along those lines. So they've got one thing that they can't control, one thing that they can, and we'll see. I think that you could make an argument that they're at discount right now. I think it's still fairly priced, frankly. I'm not a huge fan of this company long term. I think that they're doing well. I want to see the model continue to be proven out. But overall, I can say that they've done a good job over the last couple of years of establishing themselves. Absolutely.
Landon, this is an asset-light business model that seems to continue to grow, and it looks like Obviously the main advantage is if you're traveling in a group, right? It's one house, one dwelling versus a bunch of different rooms or a big suite or something like that. But the key seems to be, and in the articles I've read about this company, the key for their future is international in terms of growing. They think they can actually double the amount of homes they have in their collection by international is where they're going to find this growth. I think all the complaints by people, Tom White included, with fees. He's made a very strong case for the fees. They seem to be getting less uncomfortable, customers, with it. And so their growth has been good. It's 3% annual growth in booking value per night is what they're talking about. So, and I think your data on income is fascinating. And I think that data in general favors Airbnb. Now that's just my reaction, but give me your thoughts on everything I just said about international and the overall asset-light model that seems to be so far working.
Yeah, I mean, asset light is kind of an entrepreneurial dream, right? You don't have to build thousands of brick and mortar stores and invest. You just got to nail your software and marketing. I mean, this is Uber basically for houses, and so it's a smart model if it works. I mean, there's a vast graveyard of startups that didn't make it on an asset light model, right? It's the dream, it's the home run. Airbnb made it, so congrats to them. And once you have one like that, a winner, then I get why it's a very attractive investment. International, absolutely. I mean, if you can double the amount of homes under there, then under their brand or under their umbrella, then obviously that's going to do really well. When it comes to the income, I'm a little torn on that. I mean, you've got the higher income. They quoted themselves that they're bragging about their one bedroom cost is average is 114 versus a hotel average is 149. To me, if you're saying we're going to have more people on the higher income side entering the travel industry or entering as consumers of travel, I don't know that matches up with their them bragging about being cheaper, because generally speaking, people want to have, if they're high income, they want to have high quality, and they don't really care so much about the price. So they may lose a little bit on that edge. But that's not to say that Airbnb is only low quality. They absolutely have some fantastic experiences. They've got this new Icons thing, which is one of a kind experiences. They've got a X-Men one, they've got a Pixar Up one, they've got the Barbie Dream House. So that kind of stuff is really cool. It helps their brand. It's not going to drive the business. Volume's going to drive the business. But I think you're right. I mean, it just comes down to personal preferences and how do you get over the hurdle of people like Tom and people like me, frankly, who are just like, it seems like a hassle. And I know when I go to a hotel, maybe I arrive at midnight that night, and I know that there's going to be somebody at the front desk ready to let me in, right? And I know that this one's got room service or whatever it is just so much easier with the hotel. But if I'm going with, a couple of families or 8 buddies and we're staying for a week, then Airbnb is absolutely part of the decision equation. So it's really interesting to see the two different ways of travel and how Airbnb is navigating this. I think that because they are asset light, because they have that nimbleness available to them, as long as they execute well, then if you can bet on the execution team, then yeah, I think it's a good investment long term. Going into this earnings, we're slightly bullish. I think we've got a plus 12 on them. Not enough to make a bet, not enough to make bet against them. But I kind of want to see it play out a little bit more. I want to see if travel continues to be a tailwind for everyone, and if Airbnb can really put their stake in the ground for the non-group, non-week-long stays, because I just don't, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just, talking to my friends, but nobody stays there that I know for one night. It's just, and that's a huge part of the hotel business. So if they ever figure that out, I'm putting money in Airbnb, but I just don't see them figuring that out.
Yeah, Paris Olympics, maybe that's going to help over the last few weeks also, might be a boom for them. But Landon, if you look at the other side of it, Marriott came out with earnings, Hyatt, Hilton's tomorrow also. We saw some slides in them. Airbnb reacted negatively also. Is that maybe a warning sign for Airbnb that, hey, maybe travel is starting to crack a little bit?
Right, and I think that kind of illustrates the point that the travel tailwind is more important than the narrative of Airbnb can beat hotels. Right, they're really kind of all in it together, and it's not Airbnb versus hotels. It's is the tailwind continuing to help us? We know, of course, the consumers continuing to be squeezed. Inflation's tough, even though travel is, taking travel and experiences are taking priority over consumer goods. That is the tailwind that matters far more than is it better to stay at an Airbnb versus a hotel. That question, if they ever crack that question, it's going to be a home run for them. But until then, they're going to be very subject to whether or not it's a tailwind. And I think that's why they moved with those hotels as they did.
All right, great stuff. Great data as always, Landon. Appreciate it.